Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Meanahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Headhunters and is from the company Gutshot Games. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page, which you can do by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Those links will take you to the page. You don't have to take my word for anything that you see here. You can go there, find out for yourself, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, Headhunters is a competitive miniatures skirmish game, but when I say miniatures, you're actually using figures like this. Not only do they have a very unique look and size to them, but they're also a storage unit for the game itself. This game is very portable in the sense that you can keep all the things that you need inside the head, hence the name of the character. And so that's not the only thing that's unique about the game as well. It gives you the feel of a larger scale, more complex miniatures war game, but with very easy to understand rules and very simple and fast to play. Let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with prototype versions of all the components, and also I'm going to show you the optional add-on play mats as well. But just do bear in mind that some of these are preview components, therefore they may change slightly in the final version. I just want you to be aware of that. But in any case, then we're going to come back and we'll discuss it further. Headhunters is a competitive skirmish game, primarily for 2 players, but with special rules can be played with 3 or even 4 players. Players take control of the characters, such as the one shown here, and the goal of the game is simply to reduce the other character to 0 health. While you will actually be using these figures for the game itself, it's worth noting that each Headhunter is actually a storage solution in and of itself. You will store the dice, cards, measuring string, and bases for your character in the top of its head. For this overview, we will focus on Eric Thanison and Xeno X9, and I'm also showing you the optional playmats, which are an add-on to the Kickstarter campaign. Choose your hunter and make a stack of his health cards, with 5 health on top and 1 health on the bottom. Every time you lose a health, you lose a card from the stack. This may modify your speed, that is, how far a single move can take your character, and you may gain or lose special abilities. For example, here, Xeno's attacks are quick if he is at full health, which means he can re-roll an attack roll. And when Eric gets down to low health, he becomes powerful and does an extra damage with his attacks. Each character has a deck of 36 unique cards. There are 6 types of cards in the deck. Attack cards are what you will use to defeat the enemy in combat. Each one has an indicator for whether it's a melee or ranged attack, plus keywords and special abilities that occur when you use it. Defense cards are placed face down in your play area and can be triggered when you're attacked later, either before, during, or after you make a defense roll. Move cards let you move up to your speed, but will also have special abilities. Special cards are just that. They have a wide variety of powers and effects that will help your character or hinder your opponent. And lastly, characters can have special terrain cards in hand, separate from what is used to make the play area in the beginning of the game. Shuffle the deck and draw 3 cards at the start of the game. Each character also takes a measuring string, which is used for determining movement and attack range, and 2 dice. Dice have 3 symbols: power, the swords that are used for attacking; guard, the shields used for defense rolls; and advantage, the burst symbols that can be power or guard depending on whether or not you have advantage and what situation you're in. Attackers have advantage when attacking from behind and therefore can make their burst symbols into swords, and defenders have advantage when being attacked from the front and therefore can make their burst symbols into shields. Leave some room for a battlefield, at least 30 inches by 30 inches, but preferably 36 by 36. Each character has 4 terrain cards. These will be shuffled together and dealt back to each player, and you will take turns placing them face down, either next to each other or with space between them, then flip them face up. Rotate them so that you don't have blocking walls next to hindering open sides. Then place your character on an exceptional terrain marked with a special symbol. Terrain often have special abilities players can take advantage of when they occupy it, but terrain can also be destroyed if you can beat its durability rating by rolling power symbols. If characters are not on terrain, then they must be on a base, and regardless, they must always be facing one side of the terrain or base. The half moons on the bases in terrain are where the measuring string will start to determine length for movement or attack range. Play occurs in turns. On a normal turn, you have 2 actions and a basic move. At the end of the turn, you can discard any cards that you want, then draw back up to 3, and then play moves to the next player. Actions are almost always playing cards. Most cards only take 1 action to play, but some are free and cost no action, while others are demanding and cost both actions on your turn. A basic move lets you move up to your speed, and it's always optional, but you won't get any special effect from the move like with your cards. Regardless of how you move, moves can be either endless, which is without limit, you can move anywhere, or short, medium, or long, which refer to the 3 different sections of your measuring string. So, if you do a long-range move, you move the entire length of the string, but a medium move is only 2 segments of the string. You will always end up on either a terrain piece or a base that you place with your character at that time. You can rotate yourself for free before moving, and you can't move through other units. Moving into and exiting the space in front of an enemy can cause them to swipe at you. They make a fate roll, and if they get at least 1 advantage symbol, you take a wound. Attacks in the game can be melee or ranged, and just like with moving, the attacker can rotate for free after declaring the attack. Melee attacks must be made in the hex space directly in front of or directly behind the defender, and the attacker must be completely facing that enemy. You can attack through hindering sides or terrain, but not blocking sides. Ranged attacks must be made from 1 or more hex spaces away, and you can't range attack anyone if an enemy is next to you. You must also have line of sight, and the target must be in range of the particular attack that you're using, which is usually long range, but some are less, determined by using the string. And of course, you can only go through hindering terrain sides, not blocking sides. But defenders always have advantage while on terrain, as they have cover. Attackers and defenders will each roll 2 dice, attacker first. If the defender rolls guard symbols equal to or greater than the attacker's rolled power, the attack misses. If not, the defender loses 1 health. On your turn, you may use actions to play defense cards as well. The card is placed face down, and when triggered as indicated, will be turned face up and discarded after use. You may also place special cards down to your play area by using actions. Keep taking turns performing actions and basic moves until one player reduces the other to 0 health. That is Headhunters. Now, if you're just looking at the components of Headhunters, then yeah, it has a heck of a hook, which is not just the fact that the miniatures, and I really use that term loosely, but sure, I guess compared to full-size people, they are miniature. But that's the thing, that they are so unique looking and so different from any other tabletop skirmish game out there, that they stand out in the crowd. And I mean, yeah, it is something to take notice of. And then on top of that, the fact that this game is eminently portable, assuming you don't, whether you want to play with the optional playmats or not, if you don't feel like lugging those around, you don't really need them. You can just put everything you need to play, have 2 of the headhunters, the characters themselves, and boom, you can play a 2-player game wherever you want. You don't need a ton of space to do it either. But this game is not just about the components, and it's not just about, the how you store them. It is a fully fleshed out skirmish game with a lot of interesting elements to it. The whole way that you set up the battlefield with the terrain, and how the terrain is really just one part of the battlefield. Whether or not you use the terrain, whether or not you put your character on the terrain at any given turn is not really the point. The point is how you use your deck and those powers in it, regardless of where you are. The terrain is just like an added feature that you can either use to your advantage, or you have to work around if your opponent is using it to their advantage, which makes the game also easy to play because the setup is very quick and there's not a ton of onerous rules that you have to keep in mind that are specific to the terrain. The game actually has very straightforward and easy to learn rules, but there's still a lot going on, a lot of decisions to be made. I mean, first off, I didn't even go into this in the preview because it's kind of beyond the scope of it, but you can build your deck ahead of time. There are going to be ways that you can customize your deck to your play style, and then even just with a 36-card deck, you have attack cards, defense cards, special cards that you can use for your character, move cards, all with different special abilities to, upwards and above your basic move that you have each turn. But again, they're all just like, okay, I get 2 actions per turn. Play a card, see what it does. It's not anything too overly complex, but there's so much variety within what you can do that it feels different than a skirmish game where it's just like, okay, my character can do this set of abilities, and that's it, and that's all. Here, you decide what you're going to be able to do during the course of the game, and then even then, because you're only limited to 3 cards per turn, you can draw up at the end of your turn and discard what you want, so you can sift through a little bit easier, but you still have some limitations there. So there's going to be certain turns where you need to make the best choice you can with the limited stuff that you have. It might be a defensive turn. Oh, I got defense cards? Well, that's not bad. Setting yourself up with defense cards, which feels a little bit to me like setting down traps for Yu-Gi-Oh! In a good way, is a valid turn. It means that you're protecting yourself for future because you've only got 5 health in this game. It is incredibly important that you keep control of your health and stay defensive as much as possible, looking for the best time to take advantage on your opponent and getting advantage for yourself when you are in a defending position. So this is all to lend credence to what I said, that despite the fact that you can learn this game in literally minutes, get it up and running. You may not know the finer points in minutes, but you can get it running, especially with casual gamers, in minutes. There's still so much depth upwards and above that I think it's going to keep people coming back, especially when you get into the deck customization and the different characters that all have unique decks. That's a big point of it too. It's not just that you have these nice miniatures with different appearances. They actually have unique decks and gameplay elements to go along with them. And then as on top of that, you have the interesting theme of the different time zones and dimensions, things like Viking versus Robot Warrior, like I showed you in the preview. So if any of this appeals to you, the theme, the setting, the miniatures, the way that they're stored, which is all just very interesting, check out the Kickstarter. You don't need to take my word for it. You can go there, find out even more details about what might be coming down the line with the Kickstarter, and hopefully consider backing the project. You can follow the link in the top corner of your screen or down in the description section underneath this video. That is Headhunters from Gutshot Games. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.